Hey everybody, welcome back to Rusty Wrench Restorations. I'm Steve, and today, hopefully, we'll be getting the engine installed on our 430 crawler. So, been kind of busy with work lately, haven't really been doing too much out here. 420's been sitting here for, probably a good 3 or 4 weeks. Pretty happy with the 3-point. The plow hasn't gone down. It's gone down a little bit, but it hasn't gone down all the way yet. So good there with hydraulics. Around over here, we've got the engine all put back together in primer. My wife's beautiful hydrangeas. Anyway, so we've got the engine ready to go. Today we're going to pull the 420 out, get it out of the way. We'll push the engine in, get the engine hoist all set up, get the engine removed from the engine stand. Remember, we still have to, I got tape on there covering the sealing surface, but we've got to remove this and put the rear main seal with the housing on, and then we can install the flywheel with our new ring gear and put on our new clutch disc and pressure plate. After that, I think we're pretty much good to go. If we go back in here, you can see I've got everything covered up right now, but I went through, I can't remember if I did a video on this or not. Let me back this out a little bit so you can see. Oh, I think I actually made it worse. But anyway, I put the new, I've got this thing all wrapped up. Alright, so I'm going to cut it apart today anyway. So we got the new throwout bearing for the clutch, the propeller shaft, lubricated, springs for the throwout bearing, so everything's good there, everything's greased and lubricated, so ready to accept an engine. So hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have gotten all that stuff completed and got the engine on here. And again, once the engine's on, pretty much most of our drivetrain and frame is done. So maybe we can get some green paint flying and hopefully get this engine running so we can see what this bad boy sounds like. So anyway, well, I'm going to move the 420 out of the way and get the engine pushed over here and get my engine stand set up. It's over here in the corner. It's quite the monstrosity. It was a home built thing from a guy who did outboard engines on boats, and he was also a welder fabricator. So it's got a 3,000 pound lift capacity, so it should do the trick. But all right, let me get everything set up and let's get this thing put together. Alright, so here we have it, the gargantuan engine hoist. This thing is huge. Alright, so you saw me get that all set up. I've got the engine on the leveling adapter, I guess, whatever. I don't even know what it's called. Anyway, so we've got a couple bolts up here holding the front of the engine. We've got one of the big head bolts in the back. So basically now I'll use the engine hoist to lift the engine up. We'll remove the engine stand from the engine, exposing the back of the crank. We'll remove the painter's tape I have in there, and we'll install the new rear main seal with the gasket for the housing. Alright, I'm going to lift the engine and the engine stand. So basically it's kind of all the weight's off the stand now. And go ahead and remove all these bolts. Hope if I go the right direction here. Alright. Engine is free from the stand. Go ahead and pull the engine stand out of the way. So now that we've got the engine stand off, we can remove this tape. Basically, I just put this on the rear main seal face of the crank. When I was putting the primer on here, I didn't want to get any paint or anything on there. So get that removed, and we'll get the new rear main seal and gasket replaced. So I'll clean this face here, put the new gasket on. It's a paper gasket, so no RTV, no silicone, paper, good to go. We already got the new rear main seal put into the housing, and then I got some new hardware in here. We'll bolt the housing on, and that should be done like this. And there we go. New rear main seal, housing installed. Time to get the flywheel on. So to make this easier, we're going to go ahead and lower the block down to the ground so that we don't have to try to manhandle this heavy flywheel trying to get these 4 bolts in with this thing moving and swinging around. I always say I should have got a hobby that didn't require lifting so much weight, like knitting or fly fishing. There we go. Alright. Whew. So, now that that's on there, I'm going to get the bolt in here just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't slide off on me. So I don't want to have to do that again. Alright. There's one bolt finger tight. So now I can take 2 more bolts with these plates and install those. Then I'll remove the first bolt and reinstall it with the other one with the plate on the other side. Alright, got a little extension on there. Let's see if we can do this without it spinning. There's that. And double check, as always. 80, 80, 80, 80. Alright, I'll bend these tabs over and start putting the clutch together. These are basically just to keep the bolts from possibly coming loose, because that would make for a bad day. And we just broke one off. Alright, that's why there's 2 on each bolt. Alright, engine clutch installation. So, we've got the new pilot bearing in there. I've thoroughly greased it. And I want to get some brake cleaner on a lint-free rag and wipe down this surface of the flywheel where the clutch disc and pressure plate are going to go. We've been handling this thing a lot today, so make sure there isn't any grease or grime or anything on there. We've got a new clutch disc here. You'll notice on one side it's flat, and on the other side it's got this lip that sticks out, or collar, that's going to go out towards the transmission. Alright, so in your kit you should get a clutch alignment tool, and basically the splines on this tool fit inside the clutch disc, and at the end of the tool is a little dowel that's going to go inside the pilot bearing. And this is the wrong size one. Fortunately, my kit comes with 2 tools, and this is the smaller one that fits in that pilot bearing. So basically this tool is going to keep this clutch disc properly aligned in the housing here while we put the pressure plate on. So we'll remove this, put the tool through the disc, put the tool into the pilot bearing, slide the disc on, and that's going to keep it, for the most part, in place, although it does seem to have a little more play in it than I'd like to see. But basically this is just going to help keep everything aligned. Once we put the pressure plate on and bolt it on, the spring pressure is going to really hold this clutch disc against the flywheel. And if it's off center, what's going to happen is this tool is basically replicating the splines on that propeller shaft. So if the splines are not properly lined up, when we go to put the engine back into the bell housing, we're going to have a hard time getting that propeller shaft in there to go through the clutch disc and into the pilot bearing in the flywheel. So anyway, let's get the pressure plate on. So same drill. I'm going to take some of this brake cleaner, spray it into my lint-free rag, and I'm going to wipe down the face of the pressure plate. Make sure there isn't any grease or grime or dirt or anything that's going to impede proper operation. Here's my new pressure plate. I'm going to slide it into the housing here. Don't worry about this clutch alignment tool right now. For right now, all we want to do is get these bolts started for the pressure plate to hold it in place. Now, as we start to tighten these bolts down, it is going to start to put some pressure on that disc. So at that point, we do want to make sure everything is lined up as close to center as possible. So now I've got all 6 of the clutch pressure plate bolts installed and tightened down. One thing that you can do that actually helped me out, wasn't on video, was I had removed one of the lock washers from these bolts. They're not very long, they're just long enough. So by taking the lock washer out, you can allow it to get enough threads to engage in the flywheel, start to pull the pressure plate in. Meanwhile, you can put the second bolt with the lock washer on and snugged up, and then you can remove this one, put the lock washer on, and then put it back in as well. So anyway, the pressure plate is now tightened to the flywheel. You can see my clutch tool can be removed and installed so that it's engaged in the splines and in the pilot bearing at the other end. So at this point, the spring pressure from the pressure plate is holding that clutch disc in position, and this tool has everything lined up so that when we go to install it in the bell housing, the propeller shaft or drive shaft will be aligned with these clutch splines. One of the things that is helpful when installing the engine back in is to engage the PTO shaft if you have it on your tractor and have someone turn that. So as you're pushing it in, basically it's allowing that propeller shaft inside the bell housing to spin and align your teeth a little bit easier. So just like the steering clutches we did in the final drives, this main drive clutch also needs to be adjusted. So we're going to check the adjustment of the fingers on this pressure plate, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So for clutch adjustment, sometimes these clutches will have these little clips on here, and you just got to pull those off to make your adjustment, and then you'll make sure you hook this back on and reinstall that. So anyway, you'll pull these clips off, and basically, I'll show you down here. I've been working on this one. Let's see here. It's just like the steering clutches. You have a, see if it'll focus in. There's a lock nut down here, and then this is the nut that you're going to turn to adjust. I know it's not focusing on the right spot here. Anyway, you want to adjust this one to loosen your adjustment nut, or your lock nut, turn your adjustment nut, and then you'll relock it in place and put that cover back on. So basically, for the engine drive clutch, pull this out a little bit, we're going to use the same tool that we used for the steering clutches. So here, STR, steering, that was the set point that we used for adjusting the steering clutches. ENG, engine, this is the one we used for the engine. So same thing, that tab is going to sit at the end of this finger right here. And you want to put these two ends on the flywheel. So you can see there's still quite a bit of misadjustment here, and I've been working on it quite a bit. So this has to go down some more so that when these two, basically they'll sit flush on the flywheel like this, and I can move it back and forth and just barely touch the tops of this pressure plate finger right here. So we'll do that for all 3 of them. All these clutches are a little bit different. This one's like a real pain to get in here, so that's why I'm not doing the video of it. But anyway, I'll get these 3 of these adjusted, put those little covers back on, and we should be good to go to install this on the crawler. The clutch is now adjusted, all 3 fingers of the pressure plate. We can now remove the clutch alignment tool. It's no longer needed. The pressure plate is holding the disc in place. I do have the PTO shaft engaged so that in the event I do need to turn this propeller shaft through here to line up with these splines, I simply have to go around to the back of the tractor, grab the PTO shaft, and turn it. So, that being said, I've got this pretty much where it needs to be. I need to go this way just a little bit. You just want to try to get this to the correct height, and so that it's straight on with the tractor, and you can use this leveling bar to get the engine level, and it should slide right in. Once we get it in, we'll get our bolts on, and that's pretty much it for getting the engine in. So the way I have this leveling bar on the engine, you can't really see it from the video, but the engine's actually twisted clockwise or counterclockwise a little bit. So it'll be all right pushing it in to get the propeller shaft lined up with the clutch, but you know, we can always use something like this, these dowels. Hopefully this will fit in there. Yeah, this one's a little big, and this one's going to be a little small, but you can use dowels like this as like alignment guides. Preferably you'd want something that fits the hole a little better, but we'll go from there and see what we can do. Looks like it definitely does need to come up a little bit, so we'll take care of that first. Alright, should be about right. And then it looks fairly centered. So I'm going to go ahead and push this engine hoist in, and let's see what we can make happen. Alright, so now we're kind of getting in there. I'm going to have to play around with this to get these bolt holes to line up. But in all reality, the first thing I'm worried about is that propeller shaft. So we get a little more pressure going back. And hopefully we can let this engine push for me and do a little work while I try to align the shaft. Let's see what happens when I turn the PTO. Alright, not quite there. Definitely easier sometimes with two people. It's pretty close. It's just a matter of getting the splines to line up. Not quite there. Let's see. I'm going to see if we can't come down just a hair. Probably go too far and have to come back up. Let's try that right there. Lock this in place. So it looks pretty level there. I might need to get one of my kids to turn that PTO shaft for me. It's almost right there. There we go. It's not pushed all the way in yet, but let's see if the PTO shaft will turn. Nope, it's locked right there. So I know I have positive engagement of the propeller shaft into the clutch assembly, and as soon as we tighten this up, it'll get the tip of the propeller shaft into the pilot bearing. So I just need to kind of twist this and get some of these bolts through. So I'll just finish getting the rest of these bolts and nuts on and lock washers, and engine's on. So at this point, we're pretty much done with the engine install. I'm going to put this this dust cover on under here, and like I said, I'm going to tape off the hole where the starter goes for right now, just to ensure that we don't have any critters that want to climb in there and build a new nest and mess up my brand new clutch and starter ring gear. So the only other thing that I recommend is getting a jack stand to put underneath the engine with a block of wood. Right now the hoist is still holding a considerable amount of the weight for the engine. And it is possible that when we take the pressure off the hoist, that with the weight of the engine up front here, that it could tip forward, right? So just always be wary of that, whether you're taking it apart or putting it together. Depending on which components come off first or last, it can change the balance of weight of things, and you don't want anything to fall off, any cribbing or anything. So just as a safety measure, like I said, I'm going to get a jack stand with a piece of wood, and I'll put it under. I'm not going to put it under the oil pan because we don't want to dent that, but I'll just put it on the bottom of the transmission housing here, and that'll suffice. Eventually, once I get the front assembly bolted onto the front of the engine for the radiator and everything, I'll move that jack stand to that front portion, have a little more rigidity there. So anyway, that's about it. Not too much as far as putting the engine back on. Pretty cut and dry and straightforward. So that's about it. Next video will probably be getting this thing cleaned up. A couple of these other parts on. I still got the crank pulley to put on and some other accessories before I shoot it green. So hopefully we can get some green paint on here. I don't like to leave it in primer any longer than we have to, and it's already well exceeded that time limit. So anyway, we'll get everything cleaned up, touch up any primer areas, these new bolts and whatnot, get some primer on those so that the green will stick. And then we'll get out the paint guns and get a nice good base coat of John Deere Classic Green on this John Deere 430 crawler. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully this will help you in your endeavors to getting your engine installed back on your tractor. And until the next video, peace.